Oppenheimer, the much-awaited movie by Christopher Nolan, is releasing today. As you all must have understood from the title, this movie is about a scientist, Robert J. Oppenheimer. The movie is based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning biography American Prometheus, the triumph and tragedy of J. Robert Oppenheimer. Who was Prometheus? Prometheus was the Greek god of fire. The mythology says that it was Prometheus who let the mankind use fire, which was earlier only accessible to the supreme beings. Fire, which is considered to be the most important discovery of mankind, is believed to be the contribution of Prometheus. Prometheus was punished for his action. Later, it was Hercules who emancipated him from his punishment. So why was Oppenheimer compared to Prometheus? To understand this, it is necessary to study the life of this man who is credited as the father of atom bomb for his role in organizing the Manhattan Project, the research and development undertaking that created the first nuclear weapon. Julius Robert Oppenheimer was born into an affluent and wealthy family. His father was a Jew who had migrated to the US from Germany. Oppenheimer was good in studies and secured a seat in the prestigious Harvard University. His subjects ranged from physics, chemistry, mathematics to Western, Chinese, and Hindu philosophy. After completing his studies in Harvard, he leaves to Cambridge to pursue further studies. But over there, he was disappointed with his performance in the Cavendish laboratory and he went into depression. He then left Cambridge and joined a university in Germany where he could actively participate and contribute to the then emerging branch, the quantum physics. In 1929, he returns to US and joins as a lecturer in the California Institute of Technology. In the US, he was undoubtedly the most proficient person in quantum physics. His field of excellence was restricted to physics. It was only in 1936 that he grew interest in politics and the society in general. America was facing the Great Depression and he was ignorant in the beginning years as he was wealthy enough to do so. But later he found out that his students were facing the brunt of depression and unemployment. He slowly started to get intrigued about how the system works. During this time, he falls in love with a medical student who was a member of the American Communist Party. Her name was John Tatlock. He got to know about the left-wing movements around the world through her. He makes friends with people involved in left-wing politics and communist movements. He also makes donations to these movements. However, he was never an official member of the Communist Party. After a few years, he breaks up with John Tatlock. Later, in 1940, he marries Catherine Oppenheimer, with whom he spends the rest of his life. Catherine Oppenheimer, who was called Kitty, was also a member of the Communist Party. He was naturally influenced by communist ideologies as he was mostly surrounded by people of the same ideology. But after a few years, he decided to take a step back and started to concentrate on his area of primary interest, physics. In 1938, when German scientists discovered nuclear fission reaction, scientists all over the world started thinking about the possibility of developing a bomb which had the potential of using this enormous energy for large-scale destruction. As World War II shortly began, Nazi Germany started to develop one, which could strengthen its military might and possibly win any war. However, in America, no such plans were taken. Foreseeing the danger of this inaction, scientists wrote a letter to the then US President Franklin D. Roosevelt expressing the need for America to step up and develop a nuclear bomb. They were apprehensive about the risk of a Nazi Germany using a nuclear bomb. These scientists believed that only a nuclear-armed America could fight the Nazi Germany. In 1939, American government and US Army, in the name of development of substitute materials, started its experimentation to find out the possibilities of a nuclear fission reaction. The Manhattan Engineering District section of the Army was responsible for the project, and so the project was later known as the Manhattan Project. Major General Leslie Groves was the director of the project. Though he faced stiff opposition, he was successful in choosing Robert Oppenheimer as the director of the lab facility in which experiments would be held. Leslie Groves in the past have had conversations with Robert Oppenheimer, and he was convinced that Oppenheimer was the right person, though there was disagreement among other scientists regarding his earlier communist background. Keeping the communist background in the mind, government and FBI declined the security clearance for Oppenheimer, but however, he was sent an appointment letter to join as the director of the lab facility. Los Alamos in New Mexico was selected as the place to build the laboratory. Before reaching Los Alamos, Hakim Chevalier, Oppenheimer's friend, got him a proposal in which he would benefit if he were to leak the details of the lab facility for George Eltonton, who was spying for USSR. But Oppenheimer was not ready for a treason. A township was built in Los Alamos by American government and US Army. The township was under high surveillance and was so the director Robert Oppenheimer, as he was still awaiting his security clearance. Suspicion was enhanced when he went to meet his ex-girlfriend, Jean Tatlock, who had a communist affiliation, as we mentioned earlier. By that time, she was suffering from depression, and later she commits suicide after about 6 months of their meeting. However, after some time, he was given a security clearance, but surveillance continued. Later on, he reveals to General Pash about the proposal that he had received on behalf of George Eltonton, but he fabricates a story to save his friend Chevalier. The government was still doubtful of his conducts, but he showed great leadership qualities during the project. A Hungarian-American physicist, Edward Teller, who was in the project, was of the opinion that a hydrogen bomb should be developed instead of an atom bomb. But Oppenheimer diverted these opinions as he wanted complete focus on building an atom bomb. He went on to dismiss Edward Teller from the facility, which gave rise to a personal grudge between them. During that period, Oppenheimer had a tough time as his wife was going through postpartum depression, which led her into alcoholism. There were also issues within the facility regarding the designs. By 1945, Germany surrenders in the war. Adolf Hitler commits suicide. Now the dilemma was whether the Manhattan Project should be carried forward, as Germany is no longer going to be a threat. Oppenheimer was of the opinion that the project should be continued. His reasons were, one, that he wanted to know if there is a possibility of an atom bomb which is capable of a mass murder, and second, he felt that such a bomb could deter wars in the future. He also wanted to test the bomb in a combat field. Japan was a strong force in the war and hence was chosen as a field to be tested. However, Oppenheimer places a proposal that USSR should be informed about the plan and also that US should seek the permission of Japan for conducting such a test. At this time, Harry S. Truman enters the White House as the 33rd President of the United States. He rejects the proposals placed by Oppenheimer. US had a wiretapping operation, Project Magic, going on in Japan, through which it received updates in the country. However, it was the need of the US government to make the people feel that an atom bomb had to be used in order to stop the war. But Japan had almost prepared to surrender as it was bombarded by napalm and lakhs were burning to death. But this fact that Japan was going to surrender was unknown to most countries except the US. Harry S. Truman from USA, Winston Churchill from UK, and Joseph Stalin from USSR plans to meet at Potsdam, the famous Potsdam Conference. But Truman wanted to test the bomb prior to the conference so that he can convey to his allies the need to bomb Japan. Pressurized Leslie Groves and Oppenheimer decides to test a plutonium bomb named Gadget on July 16, 1945. The test was named Trinity Test. It was conducted in the Jornada del Muerto Desert near New Mexico. On 16th July at 5:30 a.m., the gadget exploded. On July 17th, in Potsdam Conference, Truman discusses about the atom bomb and the need to bomb Japan. Though Stalin did not take any interest, America decides to attack Japan before the USSR invades Japan, which was decided to be on the August 15th. US government gives an ultimatum to Japan to surrender by July 26th. That does not happen. So on August 6th, Hiroshima received the little boy, the first uranium atom bomb attack. 3 days later, Fat Man was detonated in Nagasaki. It was a plutonium bomb. Tens of thousands of Japanese people died of the attack. Japan surrenders and the World War II comes to an end. All hailed Oppenheimer as he brought the World War to an end. But what destiny decided for the once national hero was unanticipated. After the war, Oppenheimer was apprehensive about the use of atom bomb worldwide. He meets Harry S. Truman to talk about the need for an international cooperation to limit the use of atom bomb. Truman was not impressed, and the conversation turned bitter. Oppenheimer later becomes a chairman of Atomic Energy Commission. During this time, Soviets were successful in detonating their first atom bomb. Around this time, Edward Teller re-enters, asking for a permission to build a hydrogen bomb again. Oppenheimer declines the proposal. But President Harry S. Truman grants permission to develop hydrogen bomb. In 1951, USA was successful in testing their first hydrogen bomb. The heat from the explosion was felt 30 miles away. In the 1950s, American Air Force plans to use atom bombs in the Korean War. But again, Oppenheimer disapproves of the usage. Suspicion resurfaces. His history of contacts with communists raises eyebrows during the Cold War rivalry. 34th US President Dwight D. Eisenhower enters White House. Lewis Strauss replaces Oppenheimer as the chairman of Atomic Energy Commission. Oppenheimer still holds prestigious high posts in USA. Lewis Strauss decides not to share information regarding the country's plans with Oppenheimer. He also starts campaigns to support Edward Teller as a patriot and defame Oppenheimer as a traitor. Edward Teller later goes on to establish that Oppenheimer had links with the USSR, and that is the reason why he did not support developing the hydrogen bomb. In 1953, Soviets becomes successful in developing a hydrogen bomb. The American population starts to feel anxious. Pressure started to build up in the government. They now wanted a face to distract the public. Yes, Oppenheimer was a choice of the government. Lewis Strauss, with the help of a scientist named Dr. William Borden, becomes successful in fabricating and showcasing the treachery of Oppenheimer during his time in the Manhattan Project. FBI hands over the report to White House, and President consults Lewis Strauss for his feedback, the same old Lewis Strauss. Strauss recommends an action from the President. The government cancels the security clearance of Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer had two options. One, he could resign from all the top posts which he held, or he could face trial regarding the case. Oppenheimer decides to face the trial. During the trial, he was asked about the proposal of George Eltonton and the fabricated story that he had told General Pash to save his friend Hakon Chevalier. Oppenheimer was startled. The government was spying on him. His office and his premises were tapped during the Manhattan Project. He started to lose confidence as the court learned that he had lied to General Pash. He goes on to admit that he had fabricated a story to the general in order to save his friend. The court finds him as a security risk and his security clearance is declined. He is removed from all the top posts. In 1963, John F. Kennedy invites Oppenheimer for a dinner and offers him to revisit his security clearance case. However, Oppenheimer respectfully declines. US government then decides to honor Oppenheimer with the prestigious Enrico Fermi Award. John F. Kennedy had understood that the entire case was a trick of Louis Strauss. Lyndon B. Johnson, who assumes office after the assassination of Kennedy, confers the award, the famous Enrico Fermi Award, to Oppenheimer in 1963. This helped him in regaining the lost trust of the Americans. But shortly in 1965, he was diagnosed with throat cancer and succumbed to death on 18th February 1967. The person who raised the pride of the United States of America like never before in front of the entire world, and later to be a victim of the same nation. His story, Robert Oppenheimer, it's a unique one.